The fluorescent lights of Chicago Mercy Hospital's ER waiting room buzzed like dying insects at 2:47 a.m. Jasmine Cole had been sitting in the same plastic chair for 6 hours, her 18-month-old daughter Amara burning up in her arms. The baby's breathing had gone from labored to terrifying, each inhale a wet, rattling sound that made Jasmine's chest constrict with panic. "Please," she'd begged the triage nurse for the 4th time. "She can't breathe. Look at her lips, they're turning blue." The nurse, exhausted from a double shift, had barely glanced up from her computer. "Ma'am, I told you. We're at capacity. Gunshot victims take priority. You'll be called when a room opens up." "When?" "It's been 6 hours. When a room opens up." The nurse's tone had gone flat, final. Jasmine had returned to her chair, holding Amara against her chest, feeling the baby's heart racing like a trapped bird. Around her, the ER waiting room was a portrait of Chicago's forgotten. The addicts, the uninsured, the desperate. All of them waiting. All of them invisible. Amara made a sound that wasn't quite a cry, more like a kitten mewling. Her small body was limp now, no longer fighting. That was worse. So much worse. Jasmine stood abruptly. She couldn't wait anymore. Wouldn't wait anymore. Her baby was dying while bureaucracy shuffled papers and prioritized based on insurance coverage she didn't have. She moved through the waiting room, her vision tunneling. She'd storm back to that nurse's station. She'd make them listen. That's when she saw him. He sat alone in the corner near the vending machines, somehow occupying space in a way that made everyone else give him a wide berth. Korean, mid-30s, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than Jasmine's annual salary. His white dress shirt was partially unbuttoned, and even from across the room she could see the intricate tattoos crawling up his neck, dragons and geometric patterns that disappeared beneath his collar. His face was striking in a way that didn't feel quite human. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled, and eyes so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. He held a phone in one hand, scrolling with mechanical precision, completely unaware of, or unconcerned by, the chaos around him. But it was his stillness that caught Jasmine's attention. In a room full of fidgeting, exhausted people, he sat with absolute control. The kind of stillness that suggested violence held in check. He looked dangerous. He looked powerful. He looked like someone who could make things happen. Jasmine didn't think. Didn't plan. Just moved. She crossed the waiting room, weaving between occupied chairs, her baby burning up in her arms. She stopped directly in front of him, blocking his view of the phone. He looked up slowly. Those dark eyes focused on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Up close, she could see the exhaustion beneath his controlled exterior, shadows under his eyes, tension in his jaw, fresh blood on his knuckles that he hadn't bothered to wash off. "Please." The word came out broken, desperate. "Please help my baby." For 3 heartbeats he just stared at her. His expression was completely unreadable. Then his gaze dropped to Amara. The baby's lips were tinged blue, her breathing shallow and rapid. Her small fist clutched weakly at Jasmine's shirt. Something shifted in the man's face. Not softening exactly, but a crack in the armor. "How long has she been like this?" His voice was rough, heavily accented, each word carefully pronounced. 7 hours. The fever spiked around 6 p.m. Then the breathing got bad. "They won't see her. They say there's no room, but my baby can't breathe and they just keep making us wait." Jasmine's voice broke. "Please. I don't know who you are, but you look like someone who can make things happen. I'm begging you." He stood in one fluid motion. He was tall, easily 6'2", and moved with the kind of controlled power that made Jasmine's survival instincts scream at her to back away. But she held her ground, held her baby, and met his eyes. "Calme." He said it like a command, not a request. He walked toward the nurse's station. Jasmine followed, her heart hammering. She watched as he approached the same nurse who'd dismissed her 4 times. "I need a doctor now." He said it quietly, but something in his tone made the nurse's head snap up. "Sir, I've already explained to this woman." He placed both hands flat on the counter and leaned forward slightly. Jasmine saw the nurse's eyes widen as she took in the tattoos, the blood on his knuckles, the way he looked at her like he was calculating exactly how much force it would take to break every bone in her body. "You will find a doctor," he said, his voice dropping even lower. or I will find your supervisor, your hospital administrator, and every person in your chain of command. And I will explain to them why a child died in your waiting room while you typed on your computer. We have protocol. The child can't breathe. He enunciated each word with deadly precision. Get better. Now. The nurse reached for her phone with shaking hands. 2 minutes later, a pediatric resident appeared, looking harried but alert. He took one look at Amara and his professional mask slipped. Jesus. How long has she been waiting? 7 hours, Jasmine whispered. Get her to Trauma Bay 3. Now. The resident was already moving, gesturing for Jasmine to follow. Jasmine turned to thank the man, but he'd already stepped back, melting into the chaos of the ER. His dark eyes met hers for just a moment, some unspoken understanding passing between them, and then he was gone. Character introductions. The trauma bay was a flurry of controlled chaos. Monitors beeped, nurses moved with practiced efficiency, and the pediatric resident, Dr. Chin, according to his badge, worked with steady hands. Respiratory distress, possible pneumonia. Get me chest x-rays and start oxygen. He glanced at Jasmine. When did the symptoms start? 3 days ago. Just a runny nose at first. Then the fever. I gave her the baby Tylenol from the store, but it kept spiking higher. Tonight it hit 104 and she started breathing like this. Jasmine's voice was mechanical, reciting facts while her hands shook. Any medical history? Allergies? Previous respiratory issues? No. She's always been healthy. I take her to the free clinic for checkups. They said she was perfect at her last visit. Dr. Chin nodded, his hands never stopping their assessment. She's going to be okay. We caught it in time. But another hour, maybe 2. He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Jasmine sank into the chair beside the examination table, her legs finally giving out. Amara was on oxygen now, her breathing already evening out. The blue tinge was fading from her lips. She was going to be okay. Jasmine pressed her face into her hands and sobbed. 7 hours of waiting. 7 hours of begging. 7 hours of watching her baby decline while bureaucracy shuffled papers. And then a stranger in a blood-stained suit had made it happen in 2 minutes. Ma'am. A nurse touched her shoulder gently. We're going to admit her. Keep her for observation, make sure the antibiotics work. You can stay with her. I don't have insurance. The words came out flat, heavy with shame. I have Medicaid, but it doesn't. There's gaps in coverage and I don't know if this hospital accepts. We'll figure it out. The nurse's smile was kind. Your daughter comes first. The billing department can sort out the rest. They moved Amara to a pediatric ward room 30 minutes later. The space was small but clean, with cartoon animals painted on the walls and a reclining chair where Jasmine could sleep beside her daughter's crib. A far cry from the plastic chairs in the ER. Jasmine sat in the darkness, watching Amara sleep. The oxygen mask covered half the baby's small face, but her breathing was steady now. Strong. The monitors showed her vitals stabilizing. She was going to be okay. Jasmine closed her eyes and let herself feel it. The relief, the gratitude, the bone-deep exhaustion that came after crisis. She'd spent the last 7 hours in fight-or-flight mode, and now that the danger had passed, she was crashing hard. Her mind drifted back to the man in the ER. The stranger who'd helped without asking for anything in return. She didn't even know his name. Didn't know why he'd been in the ER at 3 in the morning with blood on his knuckles and exhaustion in his eyes. But she knew he'd saved Amara's life as surely as the doctors had. Thank you, she thought into the darkness. Wherever you are, thank you. Meanwhile, across the city, Kong Daesung sat in the back of a black SUV, staring at his phone without really seeing it. The hospital had been a mistake. He'd known it the moment he walked through those doors. But Minjun's sister had been shot during the ambush, caught in crossfire that wasn't meant for her, and his code was absolute. Civilians who got hurt because of his world deserved protection. So he'd waited in that year, ensuring she got the care she needed, making sure the surgeons understood that if she died, they died. Simple mathematics. He'd been about to leave when the woman approached him. Young mid-20s with brown skin and natural hair pulled into a messy bun. Dressed in clothes that had clearly been slept in. Worn jeans, an oversized sweater with a stain on the sleeve. Dark circles under her eyes that spoke of exhaustion deeper than one sleepless night. But it was her eyes that caught him. Desperate, yes, but also fierce. The kind of desperate that would burn the world down to save what mattered. She'd been holding a baby, small, limp, lips tinged with hypoxia. And she'd looked at him like he was salvation instead of damnation. Please help my baby. Daesung's hands clenched into fists. He'd broken his own rules tonight. Had drawn attention to himself in a public place. Had made himself memorable to hospital staff and security cameras. All for a stranger's child. Sir. His driver, Young-ho, glanced in the rearview mirror. Are we heading to the safe house? No. Daesung's voice was flat. The docks. I need to check the shipment personally. It's 4 a.m. I'm aware. Young-ho didn't argue. He knew better. The SUV merged into sparse pre-dawn traffic, heading toward the industrial district. Daesung stared out the window watching Chicago blur past. The city he'd claimed as his territory 5 years ago. The city he'd built an empire in through violence and strategy in equal measure. He'd learned the rules young. Learned them in Seoul, where his father had run one of the most powerful syndicates in South Korea. Learned that mercy was weakness. That sentiment got you killed. That the only code that mattered was strength. But his father had taught him one other rule. One that had stayed with Daesung even after everything else burned away. Protect the children. Always. Without exception. It was the single point of light in his father's darkness. The one piece of humanity that had survived decades of brutality. When civilians got caught in crossfire, when children were threatened, when the innocent suffered because of the game powerful men played, that was when his father's control would crack. That was when the violence became personal. Daesung had inherited that code along with everything else. It was why Minjun's sister was in surgery right now instead of bleeding out in an alley. Why he'd sat in that hospital for 4 hours ensuring she survived. It was why he'd helped a stranger's dying baby without hesitation. Please help my baby. Those 4 words had stripped away every defense, every careful calculation. He'd looked at that child's blue lips and seen his own sister 20 years ago, gasping for breath from an asthma attack while their father's enemies surrounded their home. Seen his mother cradling her, singing softly, refusing to show fear even as bullets shattered windows. His sister had survived that night. Barely. The stranger's baby would survive too. Daesung had made sure of it. Sir. Young-ho's voice cut through his thoughts. We have a tail. Black sedan 3 cars back. Been following since the hospital. Daesung's hand moved to the gun at his hip. How long? 15 minutes. They're not trying to hide it. The council. Daesung's jaw tightened. They're testing me. Seeing if I'll run. The Choi Syndicate's council had been circling for months. Ever since Daesung proposed the treaty with the South Side. Ever since he'd suggested that maybe, just maybe, endless territorial war was bad for business. They called it weakness. Called him soft. Whispered that his father would be ashamed. But his father had also died at 52, shot in the back by one of his own lieutenants. Betrayed by the very violence he'd cultivated. Daesung was 36. He'd prefer to see 40. Lose them, he said quietly. But don't engage. I'm not in the mood for cleanup. Young-ho nodded and took the next exit, accelerating smoothly. The tail followed, maintaining distance. They drove through the maze of highways and side streets, a deadly ballet of hunter and prey. Except Daesung wasn't prey. Never had been. 20 minutes later they pulled into the warehouse district. The tail was gone, shaken somewhere in the industrial sprawl. Young-ho parked behind a shipping container, killing the lights. Want me to check the perimeter? Young-ho asked. No. Stay with the car. If I'm not back in 20 minutes, leave without me. Sir. That's an order. Daesung stepped out into the cold November air. The docks smelled like rust and diesel and the particular rot that came from being too close to the Chicago River. He moved through the shadows with practiced ease, his hand resting on his weapon. The shipment was where it was supposed to be. 3 containers marked with the syndicate symbol, sealed and waiting. Daesung checked the manifest, verified the contents, ensured nothing had been tampered with. Everything was in order. Perfect. Exactly as planned. Which meant something was about to go very wrong. He heard the footsteps before he saw them. Multiple sets approaching from 3 directions. Surrounding him with military precision. Daesung didn't reach for his gun. Didn't run. Just stood there, hands visible, and waited. 6 men emerged from the shadows. He recognized 3 of them, council enforcers. The other 3 were unknown, which meant they were specialists. Brought in specifically for this. Kang Dae-sung. The lead enforcer stepped forward. Park Jin-woo, the council's head of security. You're wanted for questioning. Questioning. Dae-sung's voice was flat. That's what we're calling it now? You violated protocol. Left the safe house. Exposed yourself in a public hospital. Made yourself memorable. Park's expression was professionally blank. The council wants to know why. Medical emergency. One of our people was hurt. Minjun's sister. Yes, we know. We also know you stayed for 4 hours. That you threatened hospital staff. That you drew attention to yourself unnecessarily. Park's eyes glittered in the dim light. And we know about the woman. Dae-sung's blood went cold. What woman? The one with the dying baby. The one you helped for no strategic reason. No business justification. Just helped. Park smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Sentiment, Dae-sung. The council is concerned you're becoming sentimental. I helped a child. My father's code. Your father's code died with him. You keep invoking it like it's some sacred law, but it's not. It's a weakness. One the council can no longer tolerate. The 6 men shifted, hands moving to weapons. Not drawn yet, but ready. Dae-sung calculated the odds. 6 against 1. Possible but not probable. He'd take 3 down before they got him. Maybe 4 if he moved fast enough. But then he'd be dead and the power vacuum would tear the syndicate apart. What does the council want? Dae-sung asked quietly. Proof of loyalty. Proof you're not compromised. Park pulled out a phone, showed Dae-sung the screen. It was a photo. The woman from the hospital. Jasmine. She was sitting beside a hospital crib, her head bowed, clearly exhausted. The baby, Amara, was visible in the background, sleeping peacefully. Her name is Jasmine Cole, Park said. Single mother. Works 2 jobs. Administrative assistant during the day, Uber driver at night. Lives in Humboldt Park. No family except the child. No support system. Why are you telling me this? But Dae-sung already knew. Because she's your weakness now. Whether you intended it or not. Park's smile widened. The council wants you to eliminate that weakness. Personally. Prove that sentiment doesn't cloud your judgment. The words hung in the cold air between them. They wanted him to kill her. To kill the woman he'd helped. To kill her baby. To prove he was still the monster they needed him to be. Dae-sung looked at the photo. At Jasmine's exhausted face. At the baby sleeping peacefully because he'd made sure she got help. Please help my baby. No, he said quietly. Park's expression didn't change. That wasn't a request. I don't care. Dae-sung's hand moved to his weapon. The woman is innocent. The child is innocent. My father's code. Your father's code is dead, Park interrupted. And if you won't eliminate your weakness, the council will do it for you. The 6 men drew their weapons in perfect synchronization. Dae-sung drew faster. The gunfight lasted 17 seconds. When it was over, 4 men were dead. Park was on his knees, clutching his stomach where Dae-sung's bullet had torn through him. The 6th man had fled into the darkness. Dae-sung stood over Park, his gun steady. Tell the council I'm done following their orders. Done pretending mercy is weakness. Done being the monster they want me to be. Park coughed, blood bubbling on his lips. You've signed your death warrant. Then I'll die on my feet instead of my knees. Dae-sung lowered the gun. But I won't kill innocent people to prove my loyalty. Not anymore. He turned and walked away, leaving Park bleeding on the docks. The council would send more. They always did. But this time, Dae-sung wasn't running. This time he was declaring war. Inciting incident deepens. Jasmine woke to the sound of nurses changing shifts. Sunlight filtered through the hospital blinds, painting everything in shades of gold and white. She'd fallen asleep in the reclining chair, her neck kinked at an uncomfortable angle. Amara was awake, her small hands reaching toward the mobile hanging above her crib. The oxygen mask was gone, replaced with a simple nasal cannula. Her breathing sounded clear, strong. The blue tinge had completely faded from her lips. Good morning, Mama. A nurse entered with a bright smile, different from the night shift crew. Your little one had a good night. Fever's down to 99.8. Oxygen saturation is holding at 97%. Dr. Chen will be by in about an hour to check on her, but she's looking much better. Jasmine stood, her body protesting every movement. When can we go home? Probably tomorrow if she continues improving. We want to make sure the antibiotics are working, that the pneumonia doesn't come back. The nurse checked Amara's vitals, noting everything on the tablet. Have you eaten? There's a cafeteria on the second floor. You should get something. We'll watch her. Jasmine's stomach growled in response. She hadn't eaten since when? Yesterday afternoon? The hours had blurred together in her panic. I don't want to leave her. Mama, you need to take care of yourself too. She's stable. I promise we'll call you if anything changes. It's just downstairs. Jasmine hesitated, then nodded. She kissed Amara's forehead, warm but not burning, and headed for the cafeteria. The hospital corridors were bustling with morning activity. Doctors on rounds, visitors carrying flowers, the endless beep and hum of machines keeping people alive. Jasmine moved through it all in a daze, still processing the fact that her baby was okay. The cafeteria was half empty this early. She grabbed coffee, bad hospital coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard, and a muffin that was probably 3 days old. It was all she could afford. Her checking account had $47 in it. The Uber earnings from last week hadn't cleared yet, and her administrative assistant paycheck wasn't due until Friday. She sat alone at a corner table, picking at the muffin without really tasting it. Her phone buzzed. A text from her boss at the law firm. Where are you? You missed the 8 a.m. staff meeting. Jasmine's blood went cold. She'd completely forgotten. Friday was the weekly all-hands meeting that her boss insisted was mandatory for all administrative staff. She typed back quickly. Emergency. My daughter was hospitalized last night. I'm so sorry. Can I make it up? The response came before she could finish. This is the 3rd time this month you've missed work. We need reliable people, Jasmine. Don't bother coming in Monday. We'll mail your final check. Jasmine stared at the screen. Read the message again. And again. She'd been fired. Her hands started shaking. That job was her health insurance. The bare-bones plan that didn't cover much but covered something. That job was her steady paycheck, the thing that kept her apartment, kept food on the table, kept her barely afloat in a city that was drowning her. And now it was gone. She set the phone down carefully, afraid if she held it any longer she'd throw it across the cafeteria. Her vision blurred. She would not cry. Would not break down in public. Would not. Miss Cole. Jasmine's head snapped up. A man stood beside her table. Korean, younger than the stranger from last night, dressed in a sharp gray suit. His expression was polite but professional, the kind of face that gave nothing away. I'm sorry, do I know you? No. But I know you. He gestured to the empty chair. May I sit? Every instinct Jasmine had screamed danger. But she was in a public cafeteria in broad daylight, surrounded by hospital staff and visitors. What was he going to do? Sure. The man sat, folding his hands on the table. Up close, she could see the small scar above his eyebrow, the calluses on his knuckles. Someone who knew violence intimately. My name is Lee Minjun. I work for the man who helped you last night. Jasmine's breath caught. The man in the ER. Yes. Kang Dae-sung. My employer. Minjun's expression remained neutral. He asked me to check on you. Make sure you and your daughter were receiving adequate care. She's doing better. The antibiotics are working. Jasmine's mind raced. Why would that stranger send someone to check on her? Please tell him thank you. I don't know what I would have done if he hadn't. There's a complication. Minjun interrupted gently. Last night after Mr. Kong helped you, he was confronted by certain business associates. They believe his action showed poor judgment. That he exposed himself unnecessarily. I don't understand. Minjun leaned forward slightly. Miss Cole, I need you to listen very carefully. Mr. Kong operates in a world where mercy is seen as weakness. Where helping a stranger's child is viewed as a liability. His associates have decided you represent a threat. The words didn't make sense. A threat? I'm nobody. I'm just a mother whose baby was sick. You're a witness. You're someone who can identify Mr. Kong. Someone who saw him in a vulnerable moment. Minjun's voice dropped lower. Someone they believe he might protect again if circumstances required it. Jasmine's mouth went dry. What are you saying? I'm saying that there are people who want to eliminate the perceived weakness Mr. Kong displayed by helping you. The most efficient way to do that is to eliminate you and your daughter. The cafeteria seemed to tilt sideways. Jasmine gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. This is insane. I didn't ask for his help. I just wanted my baby to breathe. That's all I wanted. I know. And Mr. Kong knows. Which is why he's offering you protection. Protection. Jasmine laughed, but it came out bitter, broken. From the people who want to kill me because he helped me? That's circular logic. That's insane. Yes. Minjun's expression finally shifted. Not quite sympathy but acknowledgement. It is. Welcome to our world, Miss Cole. Jasmine stood abruptly. No, I'm not. I can't be part of this. I have a daughter. I have a life. I'm not getting involved in whatever mob shit this is. You're already involved. The moment Mr. Kong stepped between you and that nurse, you became involved. Minjun stood as well, his movements calm and controlled. The question isn't whether you're in danger. You are. The question is whether you accept protection or try to survive on your own. I've been surviving on my own for 2 years. Since Amara's father walked out. Since my parents disowned me for having a baby out of wedlock. I don't need. You need this. Minjun pulled out an envelope and set it on the table. Inside is a burner phone. Keep it on you at all times. Mr. Kong will contact you within 24 hours to discuss your options. In the meantime, this should help with immediate expenses. Jasmine opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was the phone, and $5,000 in cash. She shoved it back at him immediately. I'm not taking drug money. It's not drug money. Mr. Kang's organization deals in imports, logistics and territorial control. No narcotics. Minjun pushed the envelope back toward her. Consider it payment for services rendered. I didn't render any services. You showed kindness to a man who rarely receives it. You asked for help without knowing who he was, what he was capable of, or what it would cost you. In our world, that kind of honest desperation is rare. Valuable. Minjun's expression softened slightly. You reminded him of something he'd forgotten. That's worth more than money can buy. Before Jasmine could respond, Minjun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face went hard. I need to go. Keep the phone. Keep the money. Lock your doors. Don't go anywhere alone. He was already moving toward the exit. Mr. Kong will contact you soon. And then he was gone, disappearing into the morning crowd like a ghost. Jasmine stood alone in the cafeteria, holding an envelope full of cash and a burner phone, her mind spinning. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. But the weight of the envelope in her hands said otherwise. Escalation/protection phase begins. Dae-sung sat in the back of a different SUV. His primary vehicle was being scrapped, too identifiable after the docks incident, and stared at his phone. The council had issued the order officially an hour ago. Kill Jasmine Cole and her daughter. Prove loyalty. Eliminate weakness. He'd responded by killing the messenger. Now the syndicate was fracturing in real time. Half the organization stood with him. The younger generation who were tired of the old ways, who saw his mercy as evolution rather than weakness. The other half stood with the council, believing his father's brutal methods were the only path to survival. Civil war. After 5 years of careful peace, of building something that could last, Dae-sung had ignited a civil war over a stranger and her baby. Sir. Young-ho's voice cut through his thoughts. We have confirmation. The council hired outside contractors. 6 men. Specialists from Los Angeles. They're targeting the woman and child within the next 48 hours. Dae-sung's jaw clenched. When do they arrive? They're already here. Landed at O'Hare 2 hours ago. And our people? Minjun is at the hospital now. He's made contact with Miss Cole. She's resistant. Young-ho glanced in the rearview mirror. He said she tried to return the money. Despite everything, Dae-sung felt his mouth twitch. Of course she did. She'd looked at him like he was salvation, but she wasn't looking for charity. Just desperate enough to ask for help but proud enough to reject payment. He liked that. Respected it. Tell Minjun to stay close. Visual surveillance only. Don't approach her again unless there's immediate danger. What about you? I'm going to the hospital myself. Young Ho's eyes widened in the mirror. Sir, with respect, that's not strategic. If the council's contractors are already in the city, showing yourself at the hospital makes you a target. I'm already a target. And that woman became a target because I helped her. Dae-sung checked his gun, chambered around. I'm not going to protect her from a distance while hired killers hunt her down. That's not protection. That's cowardice. It's also suicide. Then I'll die doing something right for once. Dae-sung's voice was flat, final. Drive. Young Ho knew better than to argue further. He pulled into traffic heading toward Chicago Mercy. They arrived at noon. The hospital was busy with visiting hours, families streaming in and out. Dae-sung moved through the crowds with practiced ease, his expensive suit and confident stride making him invisible in plain sight. Just another businessman visiting a sick relative. He found Jasmine's room on the pediatric ward. The door was partially open. He could see her inside, sitting beside the crib, reading to her daughter from a picture book. Her voice was soft, gentle, making silly voices for the characters. Amara giggled, a sound like bells. Dae-sung felt something twist in his chest. This was why he'd helped. This moment. This proof that innocence still existed in a world he'd spent 15 years making darker. He was about to step away to let Minjun handle the protection detail when he saw them. Two men in maintenance uniforms. Moving with the wrong kind of purpose. Their eyes scanning, calculating. One of them had a hand inside his toolkit, resting on something that definitely wasn't a wrench. The contractors. Dae-sung moved. He crossed the hallway in 4 long strides, positioning himself directly in front of Jasmine's door. The two men saw him and stopped. Recognition flashed across their faces. They knew who he was. Gentlemen. Dae-sung's voice was pleasant, conversational. I think you're on the wrong floor. Maintenance elevators are in the east wing. The taller one, crew-cut, dead eyes, smiled. We're here for a specific repair. Room 412. That's this room. And there's nothing broken here. Not yet. The second man's hand moved inside his toolkit. Dae-sung's gun was out before either of them could react. Not pointed at them, that would cause panic, screaming lockdown. Just visible. Resting casually in his hand like it belonged there. I'm going to give you one chance, Dae-sung said quietly. Walk away. Tell whoever hired you that the contract is void. That the target is under my personal protection. And if anyone tries to touch her or her daughter again, I will hunt down everyone involved and make their deaths educational. The two men exchanged glances. The mathematics was simple. They were good, but Dae-sung was better. And he had the advantage of position, of surprise, of absolute conviction. You can't protect her forever, the tall one said. I can protect her long enough. Dae-sung's finger moved to the trigger. Now walk away or I solve this problem permanently. They walked. Dae-sung watched them disappear down the corridor, then turned to find Jasmine standing in the doorway, her face ashen. Who were they? Her voice was barely a whisper. People who made a very bad career choice. Dae-sung holstered his gun smoothly. Are you and your daughter all right? You had a gun. In a hospital. In the pediatric ward. Jasmine's voice was rising. Those men were here too. Yes. No point in lying. They were. Jasmine's legs gave out. Dae-sung caught her before she hit the floor, his arm around her waist, supporting her weight. She smelled like cheap hospital soap and exhaustion and something underneath that was purely her, vanilla and determination. I can't do this, she whispered against his chest. I can't. My baby, I just wanted her to breathe. I just wanted her to breathe. I know. Dae-sung's voice was softer than he'd intended. And she will. I promise you that. You can't promise that. You can't promise anything. You're whatever the hell you are. Some kind of criminal. And now people are trying to kill me because you helped me and I can't. You can. Dae-sung guided her back into the room, helped her sit in the chair beside the crib. Amara was watching them with wide eyes, sensing her mother's distress. You're going to do exactly what you've been doing. You're going to survive. You're going to protect your daughter. You're going to be stronger than you think you can be. Jasmine looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. How? By letting me help you. Really help you. Not just threatening nurses. Actual protection. Daesung knelt so they were eye level. I own safe houses across the city. Places no one can find. Places with security that makes this hospital look like a playground. You and your daughter can stay there until this is resolved. Until what's resolved? You said yourself, they're not going to stop. Then I'll make them stop. Permanently. The promise hung in the air between them. Jasmine studied his face, searching for something, truth maybe, or proof that he wasn't just another man making promises he couldn't keep. Why? She finally asked. Why are you doing this? Why risk everything for strangers? Daesung thought about his father's code. About his sister gasping for breath 20 years ago. About the way Jasmine had looked at him in the ear, desperate and fierce and refusing to give up. Because someone should, he said simply. Because you asked for help and I said yes and I don't take that back. Ever. Even if it costs you everything? Even then. Jasmine wiped her eyes with shaking hands. I lost my job today. Got fired for missing work because my daughter was dying. I have no income, no health insurance, $47 in my checking account. I was already drowning before this. Now I don't even know what I am now. You're under my protection. Which means you're off limits to the entire criminal underworld of Chicago. Which means you and your daughter are safer than you've been in years, even if it doesn't feel that way. And what do you get out of this? The question was direct, unflinching. Daesung respected that. Peace, he said honestly. Proof that I can be something other than what my father's world made me. Proof that mercy isn't weakness. He paused. And maybe the chance to keep a baby alive who reminds me why I started following my father's code in the first place. Jasmine stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached for the envelope Minjun had given her. Pulled out the burner phone. What do I do with this? Keep it on you. I'll call within the hour with details. When Amara is released, you don't go back to your apartment. You go directly to the address I give you. You pack nothing. You take nothing that can be traced. You disappear. For how long? As long as it takes. Jasmine looked at Amara, sleeping peacefully in her crib. Safe for now. Breathing clearly. Alive because a dangerous stranger had said yes when she'd begged for help. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Dr. Chin released Amara that evening with strict instructions. Finish the antibiotics, follow up with the pediatrician in 1 week, watch for any respiratory distress. Jasmine nodded through all of it, her mind elsewhere. The burner phone had buzzed an hour ago. A text with a single address in Lincoln Park. Nothing else. She'd borrowed a car seat from the hospital's charity supply. Her own was back at her apartment, which she'd been told explicitly not to return to. A nurse had donated a small bag of baby clothes. Someone else had found a diaper bag with supplies. The kindness of strangers was keeping them afloat. Jasmine carried Amara through the hospital corridors, every shadow making her heart race. But no one stopped them. No maintenance men with dead eyes. No threats. Just the normal chaos of a hospital at shift change. A black SUV was waiting at the main entrance. Young Ho, she'd learned his name from Minjun, stood beside it. Miss Cole. Let me help you. He took the diaper bag, opened the rear door. The car seat was already installed, properly secured. Professional grade. Jasmine settled Amara into it, double-checking every buckle with shaking hands. Mr. Kong will meet you at the safe house, Young Ho said as he pulled into traffic. He's handling some business first. Business. Jasmine's laugh was bitter. Is that what we're calling it? Yes, ma'am. They drove in silence. Jasmine watched the city pass outside the window. The neighborhood she'd lived in, worked in, barely survived in. She was leaving all of it behind. Everything she'd built over 2 years. Gone. Because she'd asked a stranger for help. The safe house was in a neighborhood Jasmine had only seen from a distance. Tree-lined streets, renovated brownstones, the kind of place where people had doormen and dry cleaning delivered. The SUV pulled into an underground garage, and Young Ho led them to a private elevator. They rose in silence. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse apartment. Jasmine's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Modern furniture that looked like it belonged in magazines. A kitchen with appliances she'd only seen on cooking shows. And everywhere, evidence of money. Real money. The kind that didn't count pennies for groceries. The nursery is through there. Young Ho gestured to a door on the left. Mr. Kong had it prepared this afternoon. Everything you might need. Jasmine carried Amara through the door and stopped. The nursery was perfect. Not showroom perfect, actually perfect. A crib with soft bedding. A changing table stocked with diapers, wipes, creams. Shelves of books. A rocking chair by the window. And on the wall, painted in soft colors, a mural of stars and moons. Someone had done this in hours. Had anticipated every need. There's formula in the kitchen, Young Ho continued. The pediatrician left instructions for Amara's medication schedule. It's on the counter. Mr. Kong also stocked the refrigerator and pantry. If you need anything else, just ask. Jasmine set Amara in the crib. The baby immediately reached for the mobile hanging above, soft musical notes playing as it turned. She was content. Safe. Why is he doing this? Jasmine asked without turning around. Young Ho was quiet for a moment. Because he made you a promise. And Mr. Kong doesn't break his promises. Even if it costs him everything? Especially then. Jasmine heard the elevator doors close. She was alone with Amara in a penthouse that cost more than she'd make in 10 years. Protected by a man she'd met once who'd killed for her, who'd turned his entire world upside down because she'd whispered 4 words. Please help my baby. She sank into the rocking chair and let herself cry. For the life she'd lost. For the danger she'd brought to her daughter. For the impossible situation she'd stumbled into. And for the strange, terrifying gratitude she felt toward a man whose name she barely knew but who'd become her only anchor in the chaos. The elevator opened 2 hours later. Jasmine had just finished feeding Amara when she heard it. She tensed, her hand moving to the kitchen knife she'd placed on the side table. But it was him. Daesung. Still in the same black suit, but now there was blood on his shirt cuff. Fresh blood. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I should have changed before coming here. I wasn't thinking. What happened? Jasmine's voice was steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. The contractors are no longer a problem. He said it simply like discussing the weather. Neither are the people who hired them. You killed them. Yes. The honesty was somehow worse than a lie would have been. Jasmine set the bottle down carefully, her hands shaking. How many? Does it matter? Yes. It matters. Because I need to know what my daughter and I are worth in body count. Daesung crossed to the window, staring out at the city lights. 8 men. The 6 contractors and 2 council members who signed the order. 8 lives. 8 people dead because she'd asked for help. I think I'm going to be sick, Jasmine whispered. That's a normal response. The first time is always the hardest. The first time. Jasmine's voice rose. You think there's going to be more? You think I'm just going to what? Accept that people are dying because of me. People are dying because they made choices. Bad choices. Daesung turned to face her. They chose to threaten an innocent woman and child. They chose to ignore my warning. They chose violence. I simply responded in kind. That's not how normal people think. I'm not normal people. He said it without emotion, just fact. I'm a man who grew up in violence. Who inherited an empire built on blood. Who spent 15 years becoming exactly what my father's world needed me to be. And then last night I remembered something I'd forgotten. What? That I don't want to be that man anymore. Daesung moved closer, his dark eyes intense on hers. You asked me for help. Just help. You didn't know who I was. Didn't know what it would cost. You just saw someone who looked capable and begged for mercy. And I realized I can't remember the last time someone looked at me like that. Like I was capable of good instead of just violence. Jasmine's throat tightened. I didn't mean to. I know. Which is exactly why it mattered. He glanced at Amara, sleeping peacefully in the nursery. She's beautiful. Your daughter. Don't. Jasmine's voice broke. Don't talk about her like you know her. Like you have any right to. I don't have any right. You're correct. Daesung's voice was soft. But I made a promise anyway. And I'm going to keep it whether you want me to or not. Whether you hate me for it or not. I don't hate you. The admission surprised even Jasmine. I should be terrified of you. Should be calling the police. Should be running as far away as possible. But I'm not. And I don't know why. Because you're practical. Because you know the police can't protect you from what's coming. Because you recognize that right now, I'm the only thing standing between your daughter and the people who want her dead. He paused. And because somewhere underneath the fear and the shock, you understand that I'm telling you the truth. I won't let anything happen to her. No matter what it costs me. Jasmine met his eyes. In the dim lighting they looked less like darkness and more like deep water. Something you could drown in if you weren't careful. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Daesung's control cracked slightly. I want you to be safe. I want your daughter to grow up without fear. I want to prove to myself that I can be something other than my father's legacy. And I want. He stopped himself. What? Jasmine pressed. I want to hear her laugh again. Your daughter. The sound she made when you were reading to her. I stood outside your hospital room for 10 minutes just listening to that sound. It was the first time in years I've heard something pure. Something that wasn't tainted by violence or strategy or fear. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I want to remember what that feels like. The confession hung in the air between them. Raw. Honest. Dangerous. Jasmine stood slowly, crossed the room until she was standing directly in front of him. Close enough to see the exhaustion in his features, the blood still drying on his cuff, the weight he carried like armor. You can't protect us forever, she said. I can try. And when you fail, when someone gets through, when my daughter pays the price for your protection, then I'll die first. That's the promise. Daesung's hand moved as if to touch her face, then stopped. I'll always die first. Jasmine believed him. God help her, she believed every word. Stay tonight, she heard herself say. Not like that. Just stay. Make sure we're safe. Let me see that you're serious about this protection. I'm serious. Then prove it. Stay. Daesung studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded once. I'll be on the couch. If you need anything. I know. The burner phone. Jasmine managed a weak smile. Thank you. For the nursery. For everything. You don't need to thank me for doing what's right. In my world, people don't do what's right. They do what's convenient. What serves them. You're the first person in 2 years who's helped me without asking for something in return. I'm asking for something, Daesung said quietly. What? For you to live. For your daughter to grow up. For proof that I can keep one promise in a life full of broken ones. He moved toward the living room. That's what I'm asking for. Jasmine watched him settle onto the couch, too short for his frame, but he made it work. His gun rested on the coffee table within easy reach. His eyes stayed on the elevator doors, alert even as exhaustion pulled at him. She returned to the nursery, lay down on the daybed beside Amara's crib and stared at the ceiling. 8 men were dead because she'd asked for help. And the man who'd killed them was sleeping in her living room, protecting her daughter with the same intensity he'd used to threaten hospital staff and eliminate contractors. Jasmine didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. So she chose both. And somehow, impossibly, she fell asleep. Jasmine woke to the smell of coffee and something sweet. Pancakes, maybe. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was back in her childhood home, before everything fell apart. Before her parents had looked at her pregnant belly with disgust instead of joy. Before the words, "You're no daughter of mine," had severed every connection she'd had. Then she remembered. The penthouse. The protection. The dangerous man sleeping on her couch. She checked Amara first. Always first. The baby was awake, playing quietly with her toes, the morning light painting her in shades of gold. No fever. Breathing clear. Safe. Jasmine picked her up, changed her diaper, dressed her in one of the donated outfits. Every movement was mechanical, automatic. Her mind was elsewhere. 8 men dead. A civil war brewing. Her entire life reduced to whatever fit in a borrowed diaper bag. She carried Amara into the living room and stopped. Daesung stood in the kitchen cooking. He changed clothes, black t-shirt and dark jeans that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. The gun was still visible, tucked into a holster at his hip. But his hands moved with surprising grace as he flipped pancakes, the domestic scene completely at odds with everything he represented. You cook, Jasmine said, her voice rough with sleep. I cook. He didn't turn around. My mother insisted. Said a man who couldn't feed himself was half a man. Your mother sounds smart. She was. Something in his tone suggested past tense, suggested loss. She died when I was 16. Cancer. My father became different after that. Harder. Jasmine moved into the kitchen, settling Amara in the high chair that definitely hadn't been there yesterday. Someone, probably Young Ho, had delivered it overnight along with what looked like an entire baby store's worth of supplies. I didn't know there'd be a high chair, she said. I had people anticipate needs. Your daughter is 18 months old. She needs age-appropriate equipment. Dae-sung plated the pancakes, 3 perfectly round circles arranged with precision. I hope she likes blueberries. That's all I had. She's 18 months old. She likes everything except green vegetables. Jasmine cut the pancakes into small pieces, testing the temperature. Perfect. Not too hot. How do you know what temperature to cook baby food? I read a pediatric care manual last night. He said it casually, like everyone read medical texts at 3 in the morning. While you were sleeping. I wanted to understand what children her age require. Jasmine stared at him. You read a manual. 3 manuals, actually. Nutrition, developmental milestones, emergency first aid. If I'm protecting her, I need to understand her needs comprehensively. Something in Jasmine's chest cracked open. This man, this killer, this crime lord, had spent his night reading parenting books so he could better protect a stranger's baby. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. Dae-sung poured coffee, set a cup in front of her. We need to talk about what happens next. Jasmine fed Amara small pieces of pancake, watching her daughter's face light up with each bite. Normal toddler things. Safe toddler things. She wanted to freeze this moment, hold it forever before reality came crashing back. The council is fractured, Dae-sung continued. Half my organization stands with me. The other half wants me dead for violating their orders. That means Chicago is about to become a war zone. Because you wouldn't kill me. Because I chose evolution over tradition. You were just the catalyst. He leaned against the counter, his dark eyes intense on hers. But yes, protecting you was the final straw. The thing they couldn't forgive. So what now? We hide here forever? Wait for them to forget about us. They won't forget. And hiding isn't a solution, it's just delayed death. Dae-sung set his coffee down. I need to consolidate power. Eliminate the opposition leadership. Force the remaining council members to accept new terms or die. You're talking about more killing. I'm talking about survival. Yours. Your daughter's. His voice was flat, matter-of-fact. The old guard won't stop until they've eliminated every perceived weakness. That includes you, your daughter, anyone I've shown mercy to in the past 5 years. They're purging sentiment from the organization. I can either let them do it or I can strike first. Jasmine's hands stilled on the pancake pieces. How many more people have to die? As many as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Dae-sung moved closer, his presence filling the kitchen. I wish I could tell you this ends peacefully. That we negotiate, compromise, find middle ground. But this world doesn't work that way. It works on power and fear and the willingness to do what others won't. And right now, I'm willing to burn down everything my father built if it means keeping one promise to a woman who asked me for help. Jasmine looked up at him. Why? Why me? Why this? You could walk away. Disappear. Let them have whatever they want. Start over somewhere new. Because I'm tired of walking away. Tired of compromising my father's one decent code just to appease old men who think mercy is weakness. His hand found her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. And because when you looked at me in that ER you didn't see a monster. You saw someone who could help. No one's looked at me like that in 15 years. I forgot what it felt like. I did see a monster, Jasmine whispered. I just didn't care. My baby was dying. You could have been the devil himself and I still would have asked. Maybe I am the devil. His smile was bitter. Just one who decided to keep one promise. Amara made a sound, a happy gurgle as she grabbed another piece of pancake. Both adults looked at her and something passed between them. Recognition. Understanding. The weight of what they were protecting. What do you need from me? Jasmine asked quietly. Stay here. Stay safe. Let me handle the war. Dae-sung pulled back, the moment breaking. Young Ho will be stationed outside. Minjun is coordinating security. No one gets past them. And you? I'm going to end this. One way or another. The emergency council meeting was held in a warehouse on the south side, neutral territory, or as neutral as anything could be in a city carved into territorial zones. Daesung arrived with Minjun and Young Ho, armed but not overtly aggressive. A show of strength without provocation. The remaining council members were already assembled. 5 old men who'd served under his father. 3 younger lieutenants who'd risen through the ranks on violence and ambition. All of them watching Daesung with expressions ranging from suspicion to outright hostility. Kang Daesung, the eldest council member, Park Sun-ho, his father's oldest friend, stood slowly. You called this meeting. Speak. I'm proposing new terms, Daesung said simply. The old code is dead. We operate under new rules now. Your rules. One of the younger lieutenants, Kim Jae-sun, ambitious and cruel, sneered. Rules that protect civilians. That show mercy. That make us weak. Rules that keep us alive longer than a year, Daesung countered. My father died at 52, murdered by his own lieutenant. His father died at 48, shot by a rival. This life has a mortality rate that makes war zones look safe. I'm proposing we change that. By coddling weakness. By protecting civilians who mean nothing to us. Jae-sun leaned forward. You violated direct orders. Killed our enforcers. Started a civil war over a woman and her bastard child. That's not evolution, it's insanity. That woman is under my protection. As are all civilians caught in our conflicts. Daesung's voice dropped dangerously low. That's the first new rule. We don't target innocents. We don't use children as leverage. We don't eliminate witnesses just because they're inconvenient. That's not how this world works, another council member said. Then we change how this world works. Or we die following the same patterns that killed our fathers and grandfathers. Daesung pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. These are the new operational guidelines. Territory management without civilian casualties. Import, export that doesn't rely on human trafficking. Protection rackets that actually protect instead of extort. Profit without unnecessary violence. Park Sun-ho picked up the folder, scanned the contents. His expression was unreadable. Your father would be ashamed, he said quietly. My father died choking on his own blood, betrayed by the system he built. I'd rather he be ashamed of me alive than proud of me dead. And if we refuse these terms? Jae-sun's hand moved to his weapon. If we decide you're too compromised to lead? Then we settle this the old way. Daesung's hand didn't move toward his gun, but the threat was implicit. I've already eliminated 8 people who thought I was bluffing. I'm not bluffing. Accept the new terms or we find out which side has more people willing to die for their principles. The silence was deafening. Finally, Park Sun-ho spoke. You're asking us to change everything. To abandon traditions that have kept this organization alive for 60 years. That's not a small thing, Dae. That's not something we can agree to in one meeting. You have 24 hours, Daesung said. After that, anyone still standing against the new code is considered hostile. And I will eliminate hostile elements without hesitation. You can't win this fight, Jae-sun said. Half the organization stands against you. You'll tear us apart. Then we tear apart and rebuild. Better to be a smaller organization that lasts than a large one that eats itself from the inside. Daesung stood. 24 hours. Choose wisely. He walked out, leaving the folder on the table and chaos in his wake. Jasmine was feeding Amara lunch when the elevator opened. She tensed, reaching for the knife again, but it was just Daesung. He looked exhausted, his shoulders tight with tension that hadn't been there this morning. How did it go? She asked. About as well as expected. They have 24 hours to accept new terms or we go to war. He sank onto the couch, his head falling back against the cushions. After that, all hell breaks loose. Jasmine wiped Amara's face, lifted her from the high chair. The baby immediately toddled toward Daesung, her small hands reaching for him with the fearless curiosity of toddlers everywhere. Daesung froze. I'm not good with. She just wants to say hi. Jasmine settled onto the couch beside him, Amara between them. She doesn't know you're dangerous. She just knows you make good pancakes. Amara grabbed Daesung's finger, holding it with both hands. She smiled up at him, that pure, uncomplicated smile that only babies could manage. No judgment. No fear. Just curiosity and trust. Something in Daesung's expression cracked. He looked at Amara like she was a miracle and a curse in equal measure. She's so small, he whispered. How does something this small survive in a world this brutal? With help. With protection. With people who give a damn. Jasmine watched him watch her daughter. What was your father's code exactly? The one about protecting children. Daesung was quiet for a long moment. My father was a monster. He killed without hesitation, destroyed lives, built an empire on fear. But he had one rule he never broke. Children were off limits. Always. No matter what. Why? Because when he was 8 years old he watched soldiers kill his younger sister during the Korean War. He was 5. Innocent. They shot her just for crying too loud. Daesung's voice was hollow, reciting old pain. He held her while she died. And he made a promise that day. No child would ever die because of him. Not directly. Not as collateral damage. Not ever. Jasmine's chest tightened. That's why you helped us. That's why I couldn't not help. When I saw Amara's blue lips, I saw my father's sister. Saw my own sister during her asthma attack. Saw every child who'd ever suffered because adults were too busy playing power games to give a damn. He looked at Jasmine. I couldn't walk away. Even knowing what it would cost. Your sister, the one with asthma. Is she? She's alive. Living in Seoul. Married to a doctor. 2 kids of her own. She got out before this life could destroy her. A ghost of a smile. She doesn't speak to me anymore. Says I'm too much like our father. Maybe she's right. You're not like your father, Jasmine said quietly. Your father's code was about guilt and old trauma. Your code is about choice. You're choosing to be better even when it's harder. Even when it costs you everything. Daesung looked at her like she'd spoken a language he'd forgotten existed. You don't know what I've done. The things I've ordered. The people I've killed. No, I don't. And I don't need to. I just know that when I was at my lowest, when my baby was dying and no one would help, you said yes. You didn't have to. Didn't owe me anything. But you said yes anyway. She shifted closer, her hand finding his. That's who you are underneath everything else. Someone who says yes when everyone else says no. That's not enough to erase 15 years of blood. Maybe not. But it's a start. Amara made a sound, a happy babble, and tried to climb into Daesung's lap. He caught her automatically, his large hands gentle on her small body. She settled against his chest like she belonged there, her tiny fist clutching his shirt. She trusts you, Jasmine said softly. She shouldn't. He should be scared. But she's not. Children are terrible judges of character. Or maybe they see things adults have forgotten how to see. Jasmine watched her daughter relax against this dangerous man, watched his expression shift into something almost tender. Maybe she sees that you're safe for her even if you're dangerous for everyone else. Daesung's arms tightened around Amara. Protective, possessive. I won't let anything happen to her. That's not negotiable. I know. And Jasmine realized she meant it. This man who'd killed 8 people in her name, who was about to start a civil war over new moral codes, who represented everything dangerous and dark about the world. She trusted him completely with her daughter's life. Maybe that made her crazy. Maybe trauma had broken her judgment. Or maybe she'd finally found someone who meant it when they made promises. It happened at 3 a.m., 3 hours before the council's deadline. Jasmine jerked awake to the sound of gunfire, distant but getting closer. She grabbed Amara from the crib, the baby crying in frightened confusion. Daesung was already moving. He appeared in the nursery doorway, gun drawn, his face set in hard lines. They're coming. The council decided not to wait for the deadline. He pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. Young Ho and Minjun are holding the lobby, but there's too many. We need to evacuate now. How many? Jasmine's voice was surprisingly steady as she grabbed the diaper bag, stuffing it with essentials. 20. Maybe more. Daesung moved to the window, assessing. They're hitting all my safe houses simultaneously. Trying to flush me out. More gunfire. Closer now. The sound of the stairwell door being breached. There's a fire escape, Daesung said. Old building, external stairs. It's risky but... An explosion rocked the penthouse. The front door blew inward, smoke and debris filling the space. Dae-sung shoved Jasmine toward the bedroom. Window. No. Don't wait for me. I'm not leaving you. You're not leaving me. I'm covering your escape. There's a difference. He was already moving toward the smoke, toward the men pouring through the destroyed entrance. Go. Jasmine ran. She clutched Amara against her chest, the baby screaming now, and fumbled with the bedroom window. It opened onto a narrow fire escape. Rusted, ancient, probably not up to code. He didn't care. He climbed through. Behind her she heard gunfire. Heard Dae-sung's voice, sharp and commanding in Korean. Heard the sound of bodies hitting the floor. The fire escape groaned under her weight. She descended as fast as she dared, her hands shaking, Amara's screams cutting through the night. 3 floors. 2 floors. Almost there. A figure appeared below her on the fire escape. Kim Jae-sun, the ambitious lieutenant from the council meeting. He smiled up at her, cruel and satisfied. Going somewhere? Jasmine froze. She was trapped between floors, a baby in her arms, no weapons, no backup. Jae-sun raised his gun, centering it on Amara. Nothing personal, he said. Just business. Jasmine did the only thing she could think of. She hurled the diaper bag at his face. It wasn't much, just a bag full of diapers and wipes and formula. But it was heavy enough, unexpected enough. It hit Jae-sun square in the face, making him stumble backward. Jasmine didn't think. She jumped. 1 floor down. 10 feet. She landed hard on the fire escape platform, her ankles screaming in pain, but she kept moving. Had to keep moving. Jae-sun recovered quickly. He aimed again. A shot rang out from above. Jae-sun stumbled, blood blooming across his shoulder. He looked up and Jasmine followed his gaze. Dae-sung stood at the 3rd floor window, gun steady, his expression absolutely cold. Run, he shouted down to Jasmine. Run now. She ran. Down the last flight of stairs into the alley, her ankles screaming with each step. Amara was still crying, terrified and confused. Jasmine held her tight, whispering meaningless reassurances, just running. A car screeched around the corner. For a heart-stopping moment, Jasmine thought it was more attackers. Then she recognized Young-ho behind the wheel, his face bloody but determined. Get in, he shouted. Jasmine dove into the back seat. Young-ho hit the gas before she'd even closed the door. Dae-sung, she gasped. Still in the building. He's covering the escape. Young-ho took a corner too fast, the car fishtailing. He'll meet us at the backup location. Will he? Jasmine heard the hysteria creeping into her voice. Or did he just sacrifice himself so we could escape? Young-ho's silence was answer enough. The backup location was a shipping container on the docks. Crude, cold, but invisible to anyone looking. Young-ho had stocked it with emergency supplies. Water, food, blankets, a first aid kit. Jasmine sat on a crate trying to calm Amara. The baby had finally stopped crying, exhausted from fear and confusion. She kept looking around, searching for the familiar, finding only shadows and industrial smells. I need to check your ankle, Young-ho said. He was pressing a cloth to the cut above his eyebrow, his own injuries secondary. You're limping. It's fine. It's not fine. Let me look. Jasmine extended her leg. Young-ho examined her ankle with practiced efficiency. Probably not broken, definitely sprained. He wrapped it with an ace bandage from the first aid kit. You jumped off a fire escape, he said quietly. That was either very brave or very stupid. He was going to shoot my baby. I didn't have time to decide which it was. Mr. Kong will be proud. And furious. Probably both. Young-ho finished the wrapping. You protected your daughter. That's what matters. Is he alive? Jasmine whispered. Dae-sung. Tell me the truth. Young-ho's phone buzzed before he could answer. He checked it and relief flooded his features. He's alive. Minjun just extracted him. They're en route. Jasmine felt something release in her chest, tension she hadn't realized she'd been holding. He was alive. He'd survived. 20 minutes later, the container door opened. Dae-sung stepped through and Jasmine's relief evaporated into horror. He was covered in blood. Not just his hands or his shirt. Covered. His face was bruised, one eye swelling shut. He moved like each step caused pain, but he was upright. Alive. How many? Young Ho asked. 12. The rest fled when the police sirens started. Daesung's voice was rough, exhausted. The penthouse is compromised. So are 3 other safe houses. They hit us simultaneously. Casualties on our side? Minjun took a bullet to the leg. Live. We lost 2 guards at the west side location. Daesung's expression was granite. The council made their choice. His eyes found Jasmine and Amara. Something in his face softened, just slightly but noticeably. You jumped off a fire escape. He was going to shoot Amara. So you jumped. Off a building. With a baby in your arms. Daesung crossed to her, knelt so they were eye level. His hands found her face, checking for injuries with surprising gentleness. You could have died. But we didn't. Because you covered our escape. Jasmine's hands covered his, holding them against her face. You almost died. Almost doesn't count. He tried to smile. It came out more like a grimace. I promised I'd die first. I'm keeping that promise. That's not funny. It's not meant to be. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. Are you hurt? Besides the ankle? No. Okay. Scared but okay. Amara made a sound, seeing Daesung, recognizing him despite the blood and bruises. She reached for him with both hands, wanting to be held. I'm filthy, Daesung said. Covered in. She doesn't care. Jasmine lifted Amara, passed her to him. She just wants to know you're alive. Daesung took the baby carefully, his bloodied hands gentle on her small body. Amara settled against his chest immediately, her crying stopping. She was safe. He was there. Everything was okay in her small world. Watching him hold her daughter. This killer, this crime lord, this man who'd just fought off 12 attackers. Jasmine felt something shift in her chest. Not just gratitude. Not just trust. Something deeper. More dangerous. We can't keep running, she said quietly. Eventually they'll find us again. Eventually we'll run out of safe houses and backup locations. I know. Daesung's voice was grim. Which is why I'm ending this tomorrow. One way or another. How? By giving the council what they want. A demonstration of strength. Proof that I'm not weak. He looked at her over Amara's head. I'm calling a final meeting. Winner takes all. The old guard against the new. We settle this with violence since they refuse diplomacy. That's suicide. It's inevitable. Daesung's expression was resigned. This was always going to end in blood. I just wanted to delay it long enough to keep you safe. And now I make sure that when the blood starts flowing, you and Amara are far away from it. He stood slowly, Amara still in his arms. Young Ho will take you to a cabin upstate. Remote. Off-grid. No one knows about it except me. You'll stay there until this is finished. No. Jasmine stood too, ignoring the pain in her ankle. No, we're not running anymore. We're not hiding while you get yourself killed. Jasmine. Listen to me. She moved closer, her hand finding his arm. You said you wanted proof you could keep one promise. That you could be something other than your father's legacy. But you can't do that by dying heroically. You do it by living. By surviving this. By building something better. There is no better if the old guard wins. They'll hunt you down. Kill you and Amara just to prove a point. Then we make sure they don't win. Together. Daesung stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You're a civilian. You have no training, no experience in. I jumped off a fire escape to protect my daughter. I threw a diaper bag at an armed man. I'm pretty sure I can figure out how to help you survive a gangster showdown. Jasmine's voice was steel underneath the fear. Besides, you said it yourself. I'm practical. And practically speaking, you need every advantage you can get. What are you proposing? I'm proposing we stop playing by their rules. Stop meeting on their terms. Stop acting like this has to be a traditional power struggle. Jasmine's mind was racing, adrenaline and desperation creating clarity. They expect violence. Direct confrontation. So we give them something else. Like what? Like proof that your way works better than theirs. Like evidence that mercy creates loyalty while fear creates betrayal. She looked at Young Ho. How many people in the organization are loyal to Daesung specifically? About 40%. Maybe half. Young Ho's expression was calculating. The younger generation mostly. People who see his reforms as evolution. And the other half? Loyal to the council. To tradition. To the old ways. Then we split them. Jasmine turned back to Daesung. We show the fence-sitters that your way leads to prosperity while the council's way leads to destruction. We make this about economics, not honor. About survival, not pride. Daesung was staring at her with something like awe. You want to turn this into a business decision. I want to turn this into a winning strategy. Because right now you're planning to walk into a meeting and get killed proving a point. That's not strategy, that's suicide with extra steps. Despite everything, the blood, the pain, the exhaustion, Daesung laughed. You're terrifying. You know that. Good. Maybe I'll scare the council into surrendering. Jasmine took Amara from his arms, settled her against her hip. Now let's figure out how to win this war without you dying in the process. They spent the next 6 hours in that shipping container planning. Daesung had Minjun bring his laptop, encrypted files, financial records. Everything they needed to build a case that his reforms weren't just moral posturing but actual business sense. Jasmine sat cross-legged on a crate, Amara sleeping in a makeshift bed of blankets beside her, and studied the numbers with the same intensity she'd once applied to nursing school textbooks. Your legitimate import business generated $4.2 million last quarter, she said, scrolling through spreadsheets. That's a 300% increase from 2 years ago when you started transitioning away from smuggling. The council calls it soft money. Says it's not real profit because it's legal. Daesung sat across from her, his injuries bandaged but still visible. The swelling around his eye had gone down slightly, but he looked like he'd fought a war. Which technically he had. Soft money spends the same as hard money. Better actually because the IRS isn't tracking it. Jasmine pulled up another file. Your protection rackets. The ones where you actually provide protection instead of just extorting businesses. They're generating steady income with zero police attention. That's sustainable. The old model gets you arrested or killed within 5 years. Tell that to the council. They've been operating the old way for 60 years. And how many of them are still alive from the original generation? Jasmine looked at him pointedly. You said your father died at 52. His father at 48. The council members who served with your grandfather. Where are they? Dead. All of them. Exactly. The old way has a 100% mortality rate. Your way might actually let people retire. She turned the laptop so he could see the projections. If you can show the fence-sitters that your reforms lead to longer lives and better profit margins, they'll flip. People are practical. They want to survive. Daesung studied the numbers, something like hope flickering in his expression. You're saying we turn this into an investor pitch. I'm saying we turn this into a choice between dying rich in 5 years or living comfortable for 30. Most people will choose 30. Jasmine pulled up another spreadsheet, this one showing casualty rates. Under your leadership, deaths in the organization have dropped 60%. That's not weakness. That's effective management. The council will say I'm cooking the books. That these numbers are fiction designed to make me look good. Then we bring witnesses. People whose lives improved under your reforms. Business owners who actually get protection. Families who don't have to bury their sons every other month. Jasmine's voice was steady, certain. We make this personal and financial. Show them what they have to gain by following you and what they'll lose by staying loyal to the council. Minjun, who'd been listening from his position by the door, spoke up. The younger lieutenants would testify. They've been pushing for reforms for years. If we give them a platform. We give them ammunition, Daesung finished. Turn the council meeting into a trial where the old guard has to defend their methods against evidence. Exactly. Jasmine felt the pieces clicking into place. You said the meeting is tomorrow night. That gives us 24 hours to prepare. To gather witnesses, compile evidence, build an airtight case that your way is better. And when the council rejects it anyway. When they decide tradition matters more than profit or survival. Then we have a backup plan. Jasmine's voice dropped. One that doesn't involve you walking into an ambush alone. Dawn broke over Chicago, painting the shipping container in shades of amber and gold. Jasmine had dozed off sometime around 4 a.m., her head on Daesung's shoulder, Amara curled between them. When she woke, she found him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. How long have you been awake? She asked, her voice rough with sleep. I don't sleep much anymore. Haven't for years. His hand found her hair, brushing a strand away from her face. I was watching you and your daughter. Thinking about how 3 days ago I didn't know you existed. And now I'm restructuring my entire life around keeping you safe. Having second thoughts? No. Just trying to understand how this happened. How helping a stranger became the most important thing I've done in 15 years. Jasmine sat up carefully, not wanting to wake Amara. Because you remembered who you wanted to be. Who you were before this life took it from you. I was 16 when my father made me kill someone for the first time. A rival lieutenant who'd stolen from us. My father handed me a gun and told me to prove I was his son. Daesung's voice was hollow, reciting old trauma. I couldn't do it. Stood there shaking, crying. So my father did it himself, then beat me for showing weakness. Said I'd never survive if I couldn't kill without hesitation. But you did survive. I survived by becoming what he wanted. By shutting down every part of me that hesitated, that questioned, that felt. By the time I was 25, I could kill without blinking. Could order executions without losing sleep. Could do everything my father did but better. More efficient. More brutal. And then you asked me for help. And I remembered that once, a long time ago, I was the kind of person who would have helped without thinking about the cost. Before my father beat that out of me. Before I learned that mercy was suicide. Daesung looked at her, his dark eyes intense. You gave me permission to be that person again. Even if it's just for a little while. Even if it gets me killed. Jasmine's hand found his face, tracing the bruises, the split lip, the evidence of violence. It's not going to get you killed. We're going to win this. Together. You keep saying that like you actually believe it. I do believe it. Because I've spent 2 years surviving on nothing but stubbornness and hope. If I can keep my daughter alive on $47 in prayer, you can win a gang war with strategy and evidence. She smiled slightly. Besides, you have something the council doesn't. What's that? Me. A civilian perspective. Someone who sees your world without the blind spots you all have. Jasmine stood, careful of her ankle. Now let's go build a case that saves your life. They spent the day gathering ammunition, literal and figurative. Young Ho drove them to 3 different locations, each one a business operating under Daesung's protection. A Korean restaurant in Chinatown. A convenience store in Humboldt Park. A import warehouse near the docks. At each stop, Jasmine interviewed the owners while Daesung waited in the car. She wanted their honest opinions, not responses filtered through fear of the man protecting them. The restaurant owner, a woman in her 60s named Mrs. Kim, spoke quietly, glancing toward the car where Daesung sat. Before Mr. Kong took over this territory, we paid protection money to thugs who offered no protection. My restaurant was robbed twice. My son was beaten for being too slow with payments. Mrs. Kim's hands twisted in her apron. Mr. Kong came 5 years ago. Said we'd pay the same amount but he'd actually protect us. I didn't believe him. But then when gangbangers tried to rob us again, his men stopped them. Shot 2 of them in the street. How do you feel about that? Jasmine asked. The violence. I feel grateful. Those men were going to kill my son. Mr. Kang's people saved his life. Yes, there was violence. But it was violence that protected, not violence that destroyed. Mrs. Kim looked directly at Jasmine. The old bosses only took. Mr. Kong gives back. That's the difference. The convenience store owner, a young man named Diego, had a similar story. So did the warehouse manager. Different details, same theme. Daesung's protection actually protected. His reforms actually improved lives. By midday, Jasmine had 6 written testimonials and 3 people willing to appear at the meeting in person. It wasn't much, but it was evidence. Proof that the new way worked. They returned to the shipping container to find Minjun waiting with more news. The young lieutenants are on board, he said. They'll testify about operational improvements, decreased casualties, better profit margins. But there's a problem. Of course there is, Daesung muttered. The council moved the meeting location. Instead of the neutral warehouse, they want to meet at the old foundry on the south side. Kim Jae-sun's territory. That's an ambush, Young Ho said immediately. They'll have men positioned throughout the building. We'd be walking into a kill zone. Then we don't go, Jasmine said. We pick our own location. Force them to come to us. They'll refuse. Call me a coward. Use it as propaganda. Let them. Jasmine's mind was racing. We don't need their approval. We need their followers. If we can broadcast this meeting, stream it to every lieutenant, every soldier, every member of the organization, then it doesn't matter where it happens. We're speaking directly to the people who'll decide this war. Daesung stared at her. You want to livestream a gang war negotiation. I want to livestream a business presentation that happens to involve gangsters. There's a difference. Jasmine pulled up her phone. Social media has democratized information. Why not use it to democratize power? Let everyone in the organization see the evidence, hear the testimonials, make their own choice about which side to support. Minjun trailed off. That's actually brilliant. And completely insane. Most brilliant things are, Jasmine said. Can you set it up? A private stream accessible only to organization members. I can have it ready in 3 hours. Minjun was already typing on his phone. We'll need a secure location. Somewhere defensible but professional looking. I know a place, Daesung said slowly. My father's old office. Downtown high-rise, fortified and symbolic. If I'm declaring a new era, might as well do it from the seat of power. Most brilliant things are, Jasmine said. Can you set it up? A private stream accessible only to organization members. I can have it ready in 3 hours. Minjun was already typing on his phone. We'll need a secure location. Somewhere defensible but professional looking. I know a place, Daesung said slowly. My father's old office. Downtown high-rise, fortified and symbolic. If I'm declaring a new era, might as well do it from the seat of power. They arrived at the high-rise at 6 p.m. The building was a monument to his father's empire, 30 stories of steel and glass in the heart of Chicago's financial district. The top floor had been his father's personal domain, untouched since his death 5 years ago. Daesung hadn't been back since the funeral. The elevator ride was silent. Jasmine held Amara. They'd decided bringing her was safer than leaving her anywhere else. Young-ho and Minjun flanked them, armed and alert. They'd brought 10 more guards, positioning them throughout the building. The penthouse office was exactly as his father had left it. Dark wood paneling, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And on the wall a portrait of his father, cold eyes watching from beyond the grave. He looks like you, Jasmine said quietly. I look like him. There's a difference. Daesung crossed to the desk. Massive, imposing, designed to intimidate. He sat here for 20 years, ordering deaths, crushing opposition, building an empire on fear. And now you're going to sit here and dismantle it. Replace it with something better. Jasmine set Amara down in a playpen Young-ho had brought. The baby was remarkably calm, playing with soft toys, unaware of the stakes. Minjun set up the camera equipment, testing angles and lighting. We're streaming to 247 verified organization members. Everyone from lieutenants to foot soldiers. The council members have been sent the link, but they're refusing to join virtually. They're still demanding a physical meeting at the foundry. Let them demand. We're doing this our way. Daesung sat behind his father's desk, looking uncomfortable in the power seat. When do we start? 5 minutes. I'll give you a countdown. Minjun adjusted the camera. Jasmine, you should be in frame too. You're part of this. I'm a civilian. You're the reason we're here. The catalyst. The proof that Daesung's code isn't just philosophy, it's action. Minjun positioned a second chair beside the desk. Besides, having a mother and child visible humanizes this. Reminds everyone what we're actually fighting for. Jasmine sat, her heart hammering. This was insane. She was about to appear in a livestream to gang members, advocating for reform with her baby in frame. But she jumped off a fire escape 24 hours ago. Insanity was relative at this point. 30 seconds, Minjun called out. Daesung reached over, found Jasmine's hand under the desk. His grip was tight, almost desperate. Thank you, he whispered. For this. For everything. For making me remember. Thank me when we survive, Jasmine whispered back. 10 seconds. 9. 8. The camera's red light blinked on. Daesung straightened, his expression shifting into something controlled, authoritative. The crime lord emerging from beneath the exhausted man. My name is Kang Daesung, he began, his voice clear and strong. 5 years ago, I inherited leadership of the Choice Syndicate from my father. I inherited territory, resources, and a code of operations that had kept this organization alive for 60 years. I also inherited a system that was killing us from the inside. He pulled up the first slide, casualty statistics. The numbers were stark, undeniable. In the 10 years before I took control, we lost 147 members to violence. Rival gangs, police shootings, internal betrayals. We were hemorrhaging people and profit. The old methods, intimidation, brutality, visible violence, were making us targets, drawing law enforcement attention, creating enemies faster than we could eliminate them. Next slide. Financial data. In my first year, I implemented reforms, reduced civilian casualties to 0, focused on legitimate business ventures alongside traditional operations, emphasized sustainable profit over quick cash. The council called this weakness, said I was betraying my father's legacy. His voice hardened. But the numbers don't lie. Casualties dropped 60%. Profit increased 300%. Police attention decreased significantly. Members lived longer. Families stayed intact. The organization grew stronger, not weaker. And we did it without abandoning our code. We just stopped treating mercy as a liability. Jasmine watched the camera, wondering what the viewers were thinking. Were they buying it? Or were they dismissing this as propaganda? Dae-sung continued, his presentation methodical and devastating. He showed comparative analyses, brought up testimonials from business owners, had Min-jun patch and video calls from 3 young lieutenants who spoke about improved morale, decreased turnover, better long-term stability. 40 minutes in, he finally addressed the elephant in the room. 3 days ago, I violated a direct council order. I protected a civilian, this woman beside me, and her infant daughter when the council demanded I eliminate them as a perceived weakness. I refused. And that refusal has brought us to civil war. He turned slightly, including Jasmine in frame. This is Jasmine Cole. She's a single mother who asked me for help when her daughter was dying. She had no idea who I was. No knowledge of this world. She just saw someone who looked capable and begged for mercy. And I gave it to her. Not because it was strategic. Not because it served any business purpose. But because my father taught me one rule that actually matters. Children are off limits. Always. Dae-sung's voice grew harder, more intense. The council says protecting her makes me weak. That sentiment has no place in our world. But I say that a world where we murder babies to prove strength is a world that deserves to burn. My father was a monster who killed without hesitation, but even he wouldn't violate that code. Even he understood some lines you don't cross. He leaned forward, speaking directly to the camera. So here's my proposal. The organization splits. Anyone who believes the old way is better. Unrestricted violence, civilian casualties, short-term thinking, you follow the council. I won't stop you. But anyone who wants to live past 40, who wants their families safe, who believes profit shouldn't require innocent blood, you follow me. We build something new. Something sustainable. Something that lets us die of old age instead of bullets. The silence after his speech was deafening. Then Min-jun's computer started pinging. Messages flooding in from viewers. Jasmine couldn't read Korean, but she could see the volume. Hundreds of responses in seconds. What are they saying? She asked quietly. Min-jun scanned rapidly, his expression shifting from concern to cautious hope. They're mostly supportive. The younger generation is overwhelmingly on your side. Some of the older members are questioning, but they're asking for more details, not dismissing it outright. What about the council? They've gone silent. No responses. But Min-jun's face went pale. There's movement in the lobby. 20 men just entered the building. Armed. Dae-sung stood immediately. They're forcing a physical confrontation anyway. Didn't care about the presentation, didn't care about the evidence. Just want this settled the old way. We have 10 guards, Young-ho started. Against 20 council enforcers who have nothing to lose. Dae-sung looked at Jasmine. You need to go. No. Take Amara and... No. Jasmine stood, moving toward him. We're not running. Not anymore. If they want to settle this with violence, let them come up here. Let everyone watching see who fired first. Who chose death over dialogue. Jasmine, this isn't a debate. You're right. It's a war for the future of your organization. And wars are won by whoever controls the narrative. She looked at Minjun. Keep the stream running. Let everyone see what happens next. Let them watch the old guard choose violence over evidence. Minjun nodded, adjusting the camera angle to capture more of the room. The elevator dinged. Footsteps in the hallway. Multiple sets. Daesung moved in front of Jasmine and Amara, his gun drawn. Young-ho and Minjun flanked him, their weapons ready. The 10 guards positioned themselves throughout the office, creating layers of defense. The door opened. Kim Jae-sun entered first, gun in hand, blood still staining his shirt from where Daesung had shot him on the fire escape. Behind him 19 more men, the council's elite enforcers. But no council members. They sent you to do their killing, Daesung observed. The council members themselves were too cowardly to come. They're watching. Like everyone else. Jae-sun gestured to the camera, still running, still streaming to 247 members. They wanted this documented. Wanted everyone to see what happens to traitors who betray tradition. So you're executing me on live television. Bold strategy. We're eliminating a threat to organizational stability. There's a difference. Jae-sun's smile was cold. Nothing personal, Daesung. You're just on the wrong side of history. History is written by survivors. Daesung's finger moved to the trigger. And I've gotten very good at surviving. The standoff held for 3 heartbeats. Then Jasmine did something no one expected. She stepped around Daesung, placing herself between him and the guns, and spoke directly to the camera. My name is Jasmine Cole. I'm 26 years old. I work 2 jobs to support my daughter. 3 days ago I asked this man for help because my baby was dying and no one else would listen. He didn't know me. Didn't know me anything. But he helped anyway. And because he helped, because he showed mercy, these men want to kill him. Want to kill me. Want to kill my 18-month-old daughter to prove that kindness is weakness. Her voice was steady, clear, carrying to every member watching the stream. So here's my question for everyone watching. Is this the organization you want? One that murders babies to maintain tradition? One that executes leaders for refusing to kill civilians? Because if it is, then you're building something that will eat itself from the inside. You're creating a world where mercy is suicide and honor is a liability. And that world has a shelf life measured in years, not decades. She turned to face Jae-sun directly. So go ahead. Shoot me. Shoot my baby. Shoot Daesung. Prove to everyone watching that the old way is the only way. But know that every person viewing this stream will see exactly what you are. Men so terrified of change that you'll murder a mother and child to stop it. That's not strength. That's cowardice wearing tradition's mask. The silence was absolute. Jae-sun's gun wavered slightly. He looked at the camera, at the hundreds of eyes watching, weighing, judging. Looked at Jasmine standing unafraid between him and Daesung. Looked at Amara playing quietly in her playpen, oblivious to the weapons pointed at her mother. Then he looked at his men, and saw the doubt creeping into their expressions. She's manipulating you, Jae-sun said, but his voice had lost its certainty. This is psychological warfare. Don't let a civilian who's braver than any of us, one of the enforcers said quietly. He was young, maybe 25, with fresh tattoos marking him as newly promoted. She's standing between guns and her child without a weapon. When's the last time any of us showed that kind of courage? This isn't courage, it's stupidity. No. Another enforcer lowered his weapon. It's conviction. She believes in something enough to die for it. That's what we're supposed to be. What we used to be before we became just killers following orders. Jae-sun spun on him. You're defecting? Right now? In the middle of? I'm thinking. For the first time in years, I'm actually thinking instead of just obeying. The young enforcer looked at Daesung. Show us the numbers again. The casualty rates. The profit margins. I want to see them myself. Daesung didn't move from his defensive position, but he nodded to Minjun. Put them on screen. Minjun projected the data onto the wall, large enough for everyone to see. The enforcers studied the numbers, some of them looking surprised, others calculating. This is real, one asked. 60% reduction in casualties? Verified by independent auditors, Daesung said. I'm not asking you to take my word. Check the sources yourself. The data doesn't lie. But the council said. The council said what they needed to say to maintain power. But power without purpose is just violence. Dae-sung lowered his gun slowly, deliberately. I'm not your enemy. The council, the old men who sent you here to kill civilians on camera, they're the ones destroying what we built. More weapons lowered. Not all of them. Jae-sun and 5 loyalists still held firm, but enough to shift the balance. Jae-sun's face went red with rage. You're all traitors. Cowards. My father. Your father died at 46, shot by his own lieutenant, the young enforcer interrupted. My father died at 38, killed by rivals while following orders from the council. Dae-sung's father died at 52, murdered by someone in this organization. How many more funerals do we attend before we admit the old way is killing us? This is exactly what he wants. Jae-sun gestured wildly at Dae-sung. To divide us. Weaken us. Turn us against each other. We're already divided, another enforcer said quietly. We've been divided since Dae-sung proposed reforms 5 years ago. The only question is whether we keep pretending unity exists or we acknowledge reality and choose a side. Then choose. Jae-sun screamed. Tradition or betrayal? The council or this traitor? Choose now. 14 enforcers moved to stand behind Dae-sung. 5 stayed with Jae-sun. The math was simple. Brutal. Undeniable. Jae-sun stared at his diminished forces, at the men who'd abandoned him, at the camera still recording everything. His gun hand trembled. This isn't over, he said, his voice shaking with fury. The council will. The council just lost, Dae-sung said quietly. You walked into this room with 20 men ready to kill for tradition. You're leaving with 5. Everyone watching this stream just saw the majority choose evolution over extinction. The war's over, Jae-sun. You lost. For a moment, Jasmine thought Jae-sun would shoot anyway. Would go down in a blaze of violence just to prove he could. His finger tightened on the trigger, his gun rising toward Dae-sung. Don't. The young enforcer who'd spoken first stepped forward, his own weapon aimed at Jae-sun. It's over. Accept it. Walk away. I'm not a coward. Then prove it by living. By accepting defeat with dignity instead of dying stupidly. The enforcer's voice was firm. My father died stupid. I'm not dying stupid too. The standoff held for an eternity compressed into seconds. Then Jae-sun lowered his gun. This isn't finished, he said, but the fight had gone out of his voice. He looked at Dae-sung with pure hatred. I'll remember this. All of this. Good. Remember it. Remember that you had a choice. Evolve or die, and you chose to walk away alive. Dae-sung's voice held no triumph, just exhaustion. That's growth, Jae-sun. That's the first smart decision you've made tonight. Jae-sun turned and left, his 5 loyalists following. The elevator doors closed on them. Silence filled the office. Then one of the enforcers who'd stayed spoke. What now? We just split the organization. We restructure, Dae-sung said. Everyone who wants to follow the new code stays. Everyone who doesn't is free to leave. No reprisals. No revenge. Clean break. He looked at the camera, speaking to all 247 viewers. As of tonight, the Choi Syndicate operates under new rules. Civilian casualties are forbidden. Violence is a last resort, not a first response. Profit without purpose is meaningless. And anyone who violates these codes answers to me directly. Minjun's computer was pinging constantly now. Messages flooding in. He scanned them quickly, his expression shifting to disbelief. Sir, the council just sent a message. They're offering to negotiate. Asking for a formal meeting to discuss transition of power. They're surrendering? Dae-sung sounded as shocked as Jasmine felt. Not surrendering, but accepting reality. They saw what happened here. Saw their enforcer's defect. Saw the numbers that support your reforms. They're pragmatic enough to recognize a losing position. Minjun looked up. They want to discuss terms for their retirement. Generous terms, but retirement nonetheless. So we won, Jasmine whispered. We actually won. We survived, Dae-sung corrected. Winning comes later. When we've rebuilt. When we've proved this works long term. He looked at her and something in his expression made her breath catch. But yes, we survived. Together. The meeting with the council happened 3 days later in a neutral location. A conference room in a downtown hotel, guarded but professional. The 5 remaining council members sat on one side of the table, Dae-sung and his new leadership on the other. Jasmine watched from an adjacent room via video feed. She'd been invited to attend, but Amara had a cold. Nothing serious, just normal toddler stuff, and she'd chosen to stay with her daughter. Some things mattered more than watching old men negotiate their obsolescence. The discussion lasted 2 hours. In the end, the terms were straightforward. The council members would retire with full pensions and security guarantees. Their families would be protected. Their legacy would be honored, selectively. In exchange, they'd cede all operational control to Dae-sung and endorse the new code publicly. It was diplomacy. Boring, practical, effective diplomacy. Everything his father's generation had considered weakness. When Dae-sung returned to the safe house, a new one, properly secured this time, he looked exhausted but lighter. Like he'd set down a weight he'd been carrying for 15 years. "It's done," he said, sinking onto the couch beside Jasmine. "Officially. The old guard is retired. The new code is law. We're rebuilding from scratch. How do you feel?" "Terrified. Relieved. Like I just survived something I shouldn't have." He looked at her. "You saved my life. You know that, right? If you hadn't stepped between those guns, if you hadn't spoken to the camera like that, if you hadn't helped my daughter, none of this would have happened." Jasmine's hand found his. "We saved each other. That's how this works." Amara toddled over, her nose red from her cold but her spirits high. She climbed onto Dae-sung's lap without hesitation, settling against his chest like she belonged there. Dae-sung's arms wrapped around her automatically. Something in his expression softened, the crime lord disappearing, leaving just a man holding a baby who trusted him completely. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about the future. About what comes next. And I don't want this to be temporary. The protection. The safe house. Whatever this is between us." He looked at Jasmine, vulnerability clear in his dark eyes. "I want you to stay. Both of you. Not because you're in danger. That threat's mostly gone now. But because I don't want to go back to what I was before I met you. Don't want to forget what it feels like to have someone look at me like I'm capable of good instead of just violence." Jasmine's throat tightened. "What are you asking?" "I'm asking if you'd consider building something with me. A life. A family. Something that isn't just survival but actual living." His hand found her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "I know I'm asking too much. No, I have no right after dragging you into this world. But I'm asking anyway because I'm selfish and desperate, Anne." Jasmine kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce, demanding, full of 3 days of tension and terror and impossible hope. Dae-sung responded immediately, his hand tangling in her hair, pulling her closer despite Amara between them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jasmine spoke against his mouth. "Yes. Yes. Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I'll build something with you. Yes to all of it." She pulled back enough to see his face. "Because you're right. This shouldn't be temporary. Shouldn't just be about protection. I don't know what we're building, but I know I want to build it with you. Even knowing what I am. What I've done. Especially knowing that. Because you could have stayed what you were, safe, powerful, untouchable. But you chose to risk everything for a stranger's baby. That's who you are underneath all the rest. That's the man I'm choosing." Dae-sung looked at her like she'd given him something infinitely precious. Then he looked down at Amara, still snuggled against his chest, drifting off to sleep despite her stuffy nose. "I don't know how to be a father," he said quietly. "Don't know how to be domestic. Normal. Good thing normal is overrated." Jasmine smiled. "We'll figure it out together. Make mistakes. Fix them. Keep trying. And when I fail, when the violence comes back, when I disappoint you, then we deal with it. Together." She leaned her head on his shoulder, the 3 of them tangled on the couch in a ridiculous approximation of family. That's what people who care about each other do. They don't give up at the first sign of difficulty. They stay. They fight. They choose each other again and again. I've never had that. Never had someone who stayed. Well, you have it now. Me and Amara. We're staying. They sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, Chicago continued its relentless pace. The city that had brought them together, that had tried to tear them apart, that had ultimately forged them into something neither could have become alone. "I need to tell you something," Daesung said finally. "About your job. The one you low." Jasmine tensed. "What about it?" "I bought the law firm. This morning. Made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Literally, I made it very clear refusal wasn't an option." He spoke quickly, almost apologetically. "You have your job back if you want it. With a raise. And proper health insurance. And maternity leave policy because apparently they didn't have one, which is illegal, but you bought an entire law firm so I could have my job back?" "I bought an entire law firm because they fired a single mother for having a medical emergency. That's unacceptable." His jaw was set, stubborn. "So yes, I bought it. I'm restructuring their HR policies. And I'm offering you your position back with actual benefits. But only if you want it. No pressure." Jasmine stared at him. "That's insane. I've been told I have a tendency toward dramatic gestures. That's not a gesture. That's corporate espionage. Corporate acquisition. There's a difference." He looked almost sheepish. "Too much. Way too much." Jasmine laughed, the sound surprising her. But also kind of perfect. In a completely over-the-top, excessive, crime lord solves problems with money kind of way. "So you'll take the job?" "I'll think about it. Might want to explore other options first. Maybe finish nursing school. Maybe work for the organization doing whatever it is I did during that meeting. Strategy. Communications. Civilian liaison." She paused. "Is that a job? Can that be a job?" "It can be whatever you want it to be." Daesung's expression was serious now. "You proved you're good at it. At translating between worlds. At making violent men see reason. That's valuable. Rare. If you want to work for the organization officially, let me think about it. Process everything first. Figure out what normal looks like before I decide how to contribute." Jasmine shifted, getting comfortable against him. "Right now I just want to enjoy this. The fact that we're alive. Together. Safe. Safe is relative. I'll take relative. It's better than I had 3 days ago." They stayed like that as evening fell over the city. Amara slept between them, her breathing clear now, her small hand clutching Daesung's shirt. Jasmine dozed against his shoulder, exhaustion finally catching up. And Daesung sat awake, watching them both, marveling at how his entire world had shifted because he'd said yes to 4 words. "Please help my baby." 4 words that had cost him everything and given him everything in return. 6 months later. The new headquarters was nothing like his father's imposing high-rise. Instead, Daesung had chosen a renovated warehouse in the West Loop. Industrial chic, open plan, looking more like a tech startup than a crime syndicate. Which was the point. Jasmine walked through the space, Amara on her hip, greeting people as she passed. She knew most of them now. The young lieutenants who'd supported the reforms, the business owners who operated under protection, the families who'd benefited from the new policies. She'd officially joined the organization 3 months ago. Her title was Director of Community Relations, which was a fancy way of saying she made sure the syndicate's activities didn't harm civilians. It was strange work, negotiating with both criminals and community leaders, finding compromises that served everyone. But it was meaningful work. Work that mattered. Her office was on the 2nd floor, overlooking the main operations center. Through the glass she could see Daesung in a meeting with territory managers, going over quarterly reports. He'd cut his hair shorter, traded the designer suits for more casual clothing. He looked younger. Happier. He looked like someone who might actually live to see 50. "Mama." Amara squirmed, wanting down. At 2 years old she was a tornado of energy and opinions. Jasmine set her down carefully, watching as she toddle ran toward the toy corner Minjun had set up. Yes, the criminal syndicate headquarters had a child-safe play area. Jasmine's influence knew no bounds. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. The first communication in 2 years. "I saw the article. About you and him. Are you safe? Is Amara safe?" The article had been in Chicago Magazine. A profile of Daesung's reforms, positioned as a human interest story about gang violence reduction. Jasmine had been mentioned briefly as his partner and strategic advisor. Her parents had probably seen her photo. She typed back, "We're safe. Happy. Building something good. I'd love to talk if you're ready." The response came quickly. Maybe. I'm trying to understand. Your father is too. It's hard, but we're trying. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was possibility. That was enough for now. Daesung's meeting ended. He emerged from the conference room, spotted Jasmine through the glass, and his entire expression changed. The way it always did when he saw her or Amara. He climbed the stairs to her office, entered without knocking. They'd long since abandoned professional boundaries, and pulled her into his arms. How was the community board meeting? He asked. Productive. They're willing to work with us on the youth employment program as long as we guarantee no criminal recruitment on school grounds. Done. Easy. He kissed her forehead. Anything else? Mrs. Kim wants to expand her restaurant. Needs a small business loan. The banks won't approve her because of her neighborhood. I'll have finance draw up terms. Standard interest, flexible repayment. He paused. See? This is what I'm talking about. Legitimate business that benefits everyone. My father would have just extorted her for more protection money. Your father was an idiot. My father was a product of his time. I'm trying to be a product of better times. Daesung glanced down to where Amara was playing. She's getting so big. She'll be 2 next month. I was thinking we could do a party. Invite everyone. Show the organization that we're serious about building community, not just controlling territory. A birthday party at syndicate headquarters. That's very on brand for us. We're nothing if not consistent in our chaos. Jasmine smiled. Also, I have news. Good news, or we're dealing with another crisis news? Good news. Possibly great news. She pulled back to look at him directly. I'm pregnant. Daesung froze. His expression cycled through shock, disbelief, and then pure joy in the space of 3 seconds. We're having a baby. Due in 7 months. I found out this morning. Jasmine watched his face carefully. I know we didn't plan this. No, it's fast. But. He kissed her. Deeply, thoroughly, with an intensity that made her toes curl. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with emotion. I love you, he said. I love you and Amara and the life we're building and this baby we apparently made. All of it. I love all of it. Even the chaos? Especially the chaos. His hand found her stomach, resting there with reverent gentleness. We're going to do this right. Better than right. We're going to build something our children can be proud of. No pressure. All the pressure. But we'll handle it. Together. He looked at her with absolute certainty. Just like we've handled everything else. Jasmine leaned into him, feeling his heart beat steady and strong against her cheek. 6 months ago, she'd been a desperate single mother with $47 in her checking account, begging a stranger for help. Now she was here, building a life with that stranger, carrying his child, helping reshape an entire criminal organization into something better. It was insane. It was impossible. It was absolutely perfect. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. For what? For saying yes. For helping my baby. For choosing evolution over tradition. For staying alive long enough for me to fall in love with you. She pulled back to look at him. For everything. Thank you for asking. For being brave enough to approach a dangerous stranger. For staying when anyone sensible would have run. For making me remember who I wanted to be. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone in that gesture that had become theirs. For giving me a reason to survive. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other while Amara played nearby and the syndicate bustled below them and the city stretched endlessly outside the windows. This was it. This was what they'd fought for. Not just survival but life. Real life with all its mess and complication and impossible joy. It wasn't a fairy tale. There would be more challenges ahead. Rivals who disagreed with the reforms, old grudges that resurfaced, the eternal struggle to build something good in a world designed for violence. But they'd face it together. Jasmine looked at Daesung, this man who'd been born into brutality but chose mercy, who'd inherited an empire of fear but built something better, who'd risked everything because a stranger asked for help. And she knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. They'd both made the right choice. To stay. To fight. To choose each other again and again. To build something worth protecting. 3 years later. The playground in Humboldt Park was alive with children's laughter on this perfect September afternoon. Amara, now 5 years old, commanded a small army of playmates on the jungle gym. Her brother, David, named after Jasmine's father, toddled after her with the determined focus of a 2-year-old trying to keep up with his older sister. Jasmine sat on a bench, 6 months pregnant with their third child, watching her children play. Beside her, Dae-sung reviewed reports on his tablet. Even family time couldn't completely eliminate business. But he looked up frequently, checking on the kids, smiling at their antics. He'd gotten good at balancing both worlds. Mrs. Kim's restaurant expansion is ahead of schedule, he said. She'll be opening the second location next month. That's fantastic. She's worked so hard. And the youth employment program just hit 200 participants. Graduation rate from the program is 94%. He set the tablet down. We're actually doing it. Making a difference. We are, Jasmine agreed. She'd gone back to school, was finishing her nursing degree online while working part-time for the organization. It was chaos, but it was purposeful chaos. The community center dedication is next week. Are you ready for your speech? I've reformed a crime syndicate. I think I can handle a ribbon cutting. You're nervous. I'm terrified. Public speaking to civilians is harder than negotiating with gang lords. Jasmine laughed. You'll be fine. Just remember, these are the people we're protecting. The families who benefit from everything we've built. They're not going to judge you harshly. They should. I've done terrible things. And you're doing better things now. That's growth. That's redemption. She took his hand. Stop punishing yourself for your past and start celebrating your present. Dae-sung looked at their children. Amara showing David how to climb, both of them laughing in the afternoon sun. Safe. Happy. Free from the violence that had defined his childhood. I never thought I'd have this, he said quietly. Never thought I deserved it. You didn't deserve it. You earned it. There's a difference. Jasmine squeezed his hand. You made choices. Hard choices. Choices that cost you allies and safety and peace. But you made them because they were right. That's what matters. A woman approached the bench, young Korean carrying a small child. Dae-sung tensed automatically before recognizing her. Sumin, he said standing. I didn't know you were in Chicago. Visiting. I wanted. His sister looked uncomfortable. I wanted to see you. To meet your family. If that's okay. It was the first time she'd reached out in 5 years. The first time she'd acknowledged his existence since he'd inherited their father's empire. It's okay. More than okay. Dae-sung gestured to Jasmine. This is my wife, Jasmine. And those are our children, Amara and David. Sumin studied Jasmine carefully. You're the woman from the article. The one who changed everything. I'm the woman who asked for help. Your brother did the changing. He was always capable of change. Sumin's voice broke. I was so angry. At father. At the life we had. At what it made Dae-sung become. I couldn't watch him follow the same path. He didn't, Jasmine said gently. He chose a different path. A better one. Sumin looked at her brother. Really looked at him, maybe for the first time in years. Saw the peace in his expression, the way he watched his children with unguarded love. The man he'd become despite everything working against him. I'm sorry, she whispered. For abandoning you. For not believing you could be better than father. You had every right to leave. To protect yourself. Dae-sung's voice was rough with emotion. I'm just glad you came back. Even if it's just for a visit. Maybe more than a visit. Maybe. Sumin trailed off, watching Amara and David play. Maybe I want to know my niece and nephew. Maybe I want my son to know his uncle. The real uncle. Not the one father created. I'd like that, Dae-sung said simply. They talked for an hour. Awkward at first, then easier as old connections resurfaced. Sumin's son played with Amara and David, the 3 cousins discovering each other with the easy acceptance of children. When she finally left, promising to return the next day, Dae-sung sank back onto the bench and just breathed. You okay? Jasmine asked. I got my sister back. You did. Because of you. Because you made me choose better. Choose mercy over violence. Choose family over fear. He looked at her with wonder. How did I survive before you? You didn't. You just existed. Jasmine leaned her head on his shoulder. But that's what we do for each other. We make existing into living. We turn survival into thriving. We build something that makes the struggle worthwhile. Best decision I ever made was helping you. Best decision I ever made was asking. They sat together as the sun set over Chicago, watching their children play, feeling the life Jasmine carried growing stronger, remembering the desperate night in the ER that had brought them together. For words had changed everything. Please help my baby. For words that had cost everything and given everything in return. For words that had saved them both. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.